Ruthless crime overlord meets a homeless woman and gives her a job as his fake wife to fool his enemies. Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. The Untouchable. Part 1. The night Ulysses Trent walked into the charity concert at the Emerald Palace, nobody dared look him in the eye. It wasn't just respect. It was fear. The jagged scar that ran from his left eye to the corner of his mouth told a story of violence that had become whispered legend in Westport. As head of the Trent organization, he controlled everything from the docks to City Hall with a calculated ruthlessness that had earned him his nickname, the Untouchable. He hadn't planned to attend the event. Charity functions weren't at his scene, but when the mayor personally requested his donation, Ulysses understood the game. Public appearances maintained the facade that his business empire operated within the boundaries of the law. "Mr. Trent, so glad you could make it," the mayor greeted, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Your generosity is always appreciated." Ulysses nodded curtly, scanning the opulent ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across silk-draped tables, where the city's elite pretended not to notice his presence. He preferred it that way. The distance, the isolation, it made business simpler. "The orchestra will begin shortly," the mayor continued nervously. "Perhaps you would like to find your seat." Without responding, Ulysses moved toward the bar. He would make an appearance, write a check large enough to keep the politicians happy, then disappear. Simple transaction. That S when he saw her. She stood near the stage, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of a cello case. Unlike everyone else in the room, she moved with an unusual confidence, her face tilted slightly upward, as if listening to something only she could hear. Her dark hair cascaded over bare shoulders, and even from across the room, Ulysses could tell there was something different about her. "Who is she?" he asked the bartender, not taking his eyes off the woman. The bartender followed his gaze. "Melody Adams. She is the guest cellist tonight, brilliant musician." As if sensing the attention, Melody turned in his direction, but her eyes didn't T-focus. They seemed to look through him rather than at him. That S when Ulysses realized she was blind. For reasons he couldn't explain, he found himself approaching her. People stepped aside hurriedly to clear his path, their conversations falling silent. But Melody remained unaware of the disturbance, continuing to unpack her instrument with practiced ease. "Good evening," Ulysses said, his voice rougher than intended. Melody paused, turning toward the sound. "Hello there," she replied, with a warm smile that caught him off guard. "Are you part of the orchestra?" "No," he answered, oddly relieved by her lack of recognition. "Just a patron." "Well, I hope you enjoy the performance." Bach, cello suite No. 1 has been known to move even the hardest hearts. Her fingers danced lightly over the strings of her cello as she spoke, producing a whisper of sound. Before he could respond, a stagehand approached to inform her it was almost time to begin. Melody nodded and turned back to Ulysses. "It was nice meeting you, Mr. Trent," he said, then watched as her expression remained unchanged. The name that made politicians stutter and business rivals pale meant nothing to her. "Mr. Trent, enjoy the music." With that, she moved confidently toward the stage, her guide cane tapping lightly on the polished floor. For the first time in years, Ulysses found himself genuinely curious about another person. He took a seat near the front, ignoring the nervous glances from those around him. When Melody began to play, everything else faded away. Her face transformed with the music, expressing emotion with an honesty Ulysses had forgotten existed in the world. Her fingers moved across the strings with precision while her body swayed with the melody. The music spoke of loss and hope, darkness and light, emotions Ulysses had buried long ago beneath layers of power and control. After the performance, he found himself waiting by the stage door. His bodyguards exchanged confused glances but maintained their positions. Ulysses Trent never waited for anyone. "Mr. Trent?" Sass Melody S' voice surprised him as she emerged, cello case in one hand, guide cane in the other. "I recognized your cologne." He almost smiled. "Your performance was exceptional." "Thank you," she replied. "Most people are more effusive with their compliments, but I appreciate sincerity more than flattery. I'm not known for flattery." "What are you known for, then?" she asked, her head tilted curiously. The question hung between them, dangerous in its innocence. If anyone else had asked, Ulysses would have seen it as a challenge or a threat. But Melody Sass' expression remained open, genuinely interested. "Business," he finally answered. "I am in business." "Ah, very specific," she teased with a slight laugh. For a moment he forgot who he was, forgot about the empire built on threats and violence, the enemies waiting for him to show weakness, the scars that reminded him daily of why trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Would you join me for dinner?" The invitation surprised him as much as it did his bodyguards, whose eyebrows shot up in unison. Melody considered the offer, her fingers absently tracing the handle of her cello case. "I usually don't accept invitations from men I've just met." Wise policy. "But there is something about your voice," she continued. "You're used to people doing what you ask without question, aren't it you?" Ulysses remained silent, unsettled by her perception. "I'll join you for dinner on one condition," Melody said. "You tell me something true about yourself, not your business or your position, something real." In his world, revealing anything personal was a weakness. Information was currency and personal details were liabilities. Yet looking at Melody's face, open and unguarded, Ulysses found himself saying, "I haven't listened to music since my mother died. Not until tonight." The words surprised him. They were true, though he hadn't consciously acknowledged it until this moment. Melody's expression softened. "That's a good start, Mr. Trent. I accept your invitation." As they left the Emerald Palace together, neither could have predicted how this chance meeting would unravel the carefully constructed walls around Ulysses' empire, or how the darkness he decultivated would soon threaten to consume them both. Because across town, in a dimly lit office, someone was already planning Ulysses Trent's downfall. And in their calculations, Melody Adams had just become a valuable weakness to exploit. Part 2. The Italian restaurant sat nestled between two brownstones on a quiet street far from the glittering downtown. Ulysses had chosen it carefully, a place neither associated with his business nor frequented by those who might recognize him. Castello AS was family-owned, discreet, and most importantly, had a private entrance through the kitchen. "It smells wonderful," Melody commented as they were escorted to a secluded booth in the back. "Basil, garlic, and is that saffron?" "You have a good nose," Ulysses replied, watching as she navigated the space with graceful confidence. "When you lose one sense, the others compensate." She settled into her seat, placing her folded cane beside her. "Though I suspect you was someone who relies on all your senses quite keenly." Ulysses studied her face in the candlelight. Without the formality of the concert hall, she seemed younger, more vibrant. Her dark hair was now pulled back in a simple style that accentuated her features, high cheekbones, full lips, and those unseeing eyes that somehow managed to perceive more than most. "You were staring," she said with a small smile. "How did you know?" The silence has weight to it. Her fingers found the water glass and lifted it with precision. People usually fill silence with words when they're not looking. "I am not good with words," Ulysses admitted. "Then what are you good at, Mr. Trent?" Before he could answer, the owner himself approached their table. "Mr. Trent, what an honor. Everything is prepared as you requested." The man's deference was subtle but unmistakable. After they ordered, Melody leaned forward slightly. "So you were someone important enough to make restaurant owners nervous." "I have investments in many businesses," Ulysses replied carefully. And these investments make people treat you differently." It wasn't a question. That must be lonely. The observation caught him off guard. Loneliness wasn't something Ulysses acknowledged, not even to himself. Power, respect, control. These were the metrics by which he measured his life. Yet in her simple statement, Melody had identified the hollow center of his existence with unnerving accuracy. "Tell me about your music," he said, changing the subject. To his relief, she allowed the deflection, describing her journey from childhood prodigy to acclaimed cellist. She spoke of music as a language, a way of communicating emotions too complex for words. Ulysses found himself captivated not just by her story, but by the animated way she told it. Her hands moving expressively, her face alive with passion. "What about you?" she asked after their main course arrived. "You said music reminds you of your mother." Ulysses tensed. He never discussed his past, and yet something about Melody's presence made the words form before he could stop them. She played piano, not professionally, but beautifully. "She dreamed of sending me to music school." He paused, surprised by the memory. "We didn't have much, but she saved everything for those lessons." "What happened?" "She got sick. The money went to doctors instead." His voice hardened. "Didn't matter in the end." Melody reached across the table, her hand finding his with unerring accuracy. Her touch was light, but it sent an unexpected current through him. When was the last time someone had touched him without fear or agenda? "I'm sorry," she said simply. Under normal circumstances, Ulysses would have pulled away, maintaining the distance that kept him untouchable. Instead, he found himself turning his hand to clasp hers briefly. It was a long time ago. The evening continued, and Ulysses found himself revealing more than he had to anyone in years. Not the details of his business or rise to power, but fragmented glimpses of the person behind the feared name. For her part, Melody listened without judgment, offering stories of her own struggles and triumphs. It was only when his phone vibrated for the third time that reality intruded. Checking the message, Ulysses' expression darkened. "Trouble?" Melody asked, sensing the shift in his mood. "Nothing important," he lied, even as he read the urgent warning from his security chief. "Movement on the Martinez territory. Emergency meeting called." "You were not very good at lying," she observed with a small smile. "At least not to me." Ulysses signaled for the check. "I need to go. Business that can wait." Of course, if she was disappointed, she hid it well. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Trent." "Say Ulysses," he corrected her, surprising himself again. "Ulysses," she repeated, the name sounding different in her voice. "Will I see you again?" The question hung between them. The rational part of him knew that pursuing any connection with Melody Adams was dangerous, for his operation and for her. Yet the thought of not seeing her again created an unexpected hollow feeling in his chest. "I have tickets to the symphony next weekend," he said finally. "See if you're interested." Her smile was answer enough. Outside, his driver waited with the car. As Ulysses helped Melody into the back seat, he felt eyes on them. Scanning the street, he caught a glimpse of someone ducking into an alley across the road. His instincts, honed by years of survival, prickled with warning. "I'll have my driver take you home," he said, his voice returning to its usual business-like tone. "You are not coming?" "I have another matter to attend to." He hesitated, then added, "Lock your doors tonight, Melody." She tilted her head, considering his words. "Is there something I should be worried about, Ulysses?" "No," he said firmly. "I just don't take chances." After reluctantly giving the driver her address, Ulysses watched the car pull away, his mind already shifting to the problem at hand. The Martinez family had been pushing boundaries for months, testing his control over the eastern districts. If they were making a move now, it needed to be crushed immediately. Yet even as he slipped into a different car and headed toward the warehouse that served as his unofficial headquarters, thoughts of Melody lingered. For a few hours, he had been just a man sharing dinner with a beautiful woman, not the feared crime lord whose name was whispered in darkened rooms. The warehouse was buzzing with activity when he arrived. His top lieutenants gathered around a table covered with maps and surveillance photos. The atmosphere was tense, electric with anticipation of violence. "What do we know?" Ulysses demanded, all traces of the evening's warmth vanishing from his voice. Martinez S. crew hit 2 of our distribution centers, his security chief reported. Took out 3 of our men, left this. He slid a blood-stained playing card across the table. An ace of spades with a bullet hole through its center. Ulysses picked up the card, his expression unreadable. The message was clear. The Martinez family was declaring war. "They re-watching you, boss," another lieutenant added nervously. "Following your movements. That's how they knew to hit when they did. How long?" Ulysses' voice was dangerously quiet. "At least a week, maybe longer." The implications settled heavily in the room. If they had been tracking him for a week, they knew about tonight. They knew about Melody. Ulysses' mind raced through the possibilities, each more concerning than the last. In his world, connections were vulnerabilities. Anyone close to him became a target. He had maintained his position by remaining isolated, untouchable. One dinner had changed that. "Find out everything about the Martinez operation," he ordered. "I want to know where they sleep, what they eat, who they talk to, and double security on all our locations." As his men rushed to comply, Ulysses stepped away to make a call. For the first time in years, he felt something he had nearly forgotten. Fear. Not for himself, but for someone else. The call connected after 2 rings. "Mr. Trent." His driver's voice came through the line. "Is she home safely?" "Yes, sir. I waited until she was inside. The building has security at the entrance." Relief flooded through him, quickly followed by resolve. What had started between them needed to end now, before Melody became collateral damage in a war she knew nothing about. Yet even as he made this decision, Ulysses knew with unsettling certainty that it was already too late. The connection had been formed, and in his world, connections were deadly. Across town, Melody Adams entered her apartment, still smiling at the memory of their dinner conversation. She moved confidently through her space, fingers trailing along familiar surfaces as she replayed Ulysses' words in her mind. There had been pain there and power, but also something unexpected, loneliness that mirrored her own. Setting her cello case down, she froze at an unfamiliar scent in the air. Someone had been in her apartment, someone wearing expensive cologne different from Ulysses' distinctive scent. Before she could react, a hand clamped over her mouth. "Miss Adams," a voice whispered in her ear, "you've caught the attention of a very dangerous man. Now you're going to help us bring him down." Part 3. "Let go of me," Melody said calmly, once the hand lifted from her mouth. Her heart raced, but years of navigating a world without sight had taught her to control her fear. "What do you want?" "Just a conversation," the man replied, his voice smooth as polished marble. "I am Neil Martinez, and you've become quite valuable to us." Melody recognized the name immediately from Ulysses' urgent phone call. "I don't know what you think I am to him, but you mistaken." "Am I?" As Neil circled her slowly, his footsteps deliberate on the hardwood floor. The great Ulysses Trent, who hasn't been seen with a woman in years, suddenly taking a blind cellist to dinner, looking at you like you were the only person in the room. That makes you very interesting to me. We met at a concert. He enjoyed my music. It was just dinner. Neil chuckled. "Then you won, and mind helping me prove that?" "What do you want?" Melody repeated, standing her ground. "Information, access, the opportunity to end Trent's stranglehold on this city. I barely know him, but you will." Neil stopped directly in front of her. "He has already called his driver to check on you. That is not what a man does after just dinner. He'll see you again, and when he does, you will wear this." He pressed something small and metallic into her palm. "A recording device," Neil explained. "Simple, undetectable. You will gather information for me, or what?" Melody interrupted, her fingers closing around the device. "You will hurt me, kill me." "I am not a monster, Miss Adams." His tone suggested otherwise. "But everyone has something to lose. You have a sister in New Brighton with 2 small children. Charming family." Ice formed in Melody's veins. "Leave them out of this. I'd prefer to. Just wear the device when you with Trent. Record his conversations, his business dealings. When I have what I need, you and your family will never hear from me again." "And if I go to Ulysses instead?" Neil's laugh was chilling. Then you all learn exactly why people fear him more than they fear me. Do you really think a man like Trent tolerates betrayal? Do you think he'd believe you didn't to know who he was when you met? That you weren't planted to get close to him? The room fell silent as Melody considered her options. Fear and anger battled within her, but practicality won out. She needed time to think, to plan. "Fine," she said finally, "but I want your word. My family will be safe." "You have it," Neil replied, though his promise carried no weight. "I'll be in touch." After he left, Melody sank onto her sofa, the recording device clutched in her hand. Her mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Whether Ulysses was the businessman he claimed or something darker, she was now caught between dangerous forces. For the first time since losing her sight, Melody felt truly blind. 3 days passed without word from Ulysses. Melody threw herself into practice, preparing for upcoming performances while wrestling with her impossible situation. The recording device sat untouched in her drawer, a constant reminder of the trap closing around her. On the 4th day, flowers arrived. Rare calla lilies with a distinctive fragrance. The note, which her home assistant read aloud, was brief. "Symphony, Saturday, 8 p.m. UT." Melody traced the embossed card, torn between anticipation and dread. Despite everything, she wanted to see him again. Their dinner conversation had awakened something in her, a connection she'd not felt before. But now Neil Martinez's threats loomed over any possible relationship. Saturday arrived with brutal swiftness. Melody dressed carefully in a midnight blue gown, her hair swept up elegantly. At the last moment, she retrieved the recording device, slipping it into her clutch without activating it. She needed to buy time to understand the situation better before making a decision that could destroy lives. Ulysses' IS driver collected her precisely at 7:30. The car smelled of leather and Ulysses' distinctive cologne, but he wasn't tea inside. "Mr. Trent will meet you at the Symphony Hall," the driver explained, sensing her confusion. The drive was tense, Melody's thoughts churning as the city sounds flowed around her. When they arrived, a hand touched her elbow, familiar now despite having felt it only once before. "You look beautiful," Ulysses said, his voice carrying that same roughness that had first caught her attention. "Thank you," she replied, taking his arm. "I wasn't sure I'd hear from you again." "I considered that option," he admitted as they walked into the grand hall. "It would have been safer for both of us." "Safer?" She kept her tone light. "Is dinner with me so dangerous?" His pause spoke volumes. "My business creates complications." "What kind of business creates complications from dinner, Ulysses?" She stopped walking, turning toward him. The truth this time. The crowd flowed around them as Ulysses considered his response. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. "Not here," he said finally. After the symphony. The performance was exquisite, Tchaikovsky's violin concerto in D major, but Melody barely registered the music, her focus entirely on the man beside her, and the choice that loomed ahead. Occasionally, Ulysses' arm would brush against hers, sending unexpected electricity through her. Afterward, instead of taking her home, Ulysses directed his driver to the waterfront. They walked along a private dock, the sound of gentle waves providing privacy from potential listeners. "I control much of this city's underground economy," Ulysses said without preamble. "Shipping, distribution, protection, some legal, most not." Melody absorbed this confirmation of what she'd begun to suspect. "You're a crime boss." "I prefer a businessman with flexible ethics," he replied, though without humor. "I was born with nothing, Melody. My mother died because we couldn't afford proper medical care. I swore I'd never be powerless again." "And the scar? The one people are too afraid to look at?" Ulysses instinctively touched his face. "A reminder of what happens when you trust the wrong person." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve the truth before this goes any further." His voice took on an edge she hadn't heard before. "And because you'll be in danger simply by knowing me." Melody's hand tightened on his arm. "Martinez, Ulysses stopped walking. How do you know that name? The moment had arrived sooner than she expected. Taking a deep breath, Melody reached into her clutch and withdrew the recording device. He was in my apartment after you dropped me home. Twice she held out the device. He wants me to record your conversations, gather evidence against you. He threatened my sister and her children. The silence that followed was absolute. Melody braced herself, remembering Neil's warning about how Ulysses would react to perceived betrayal. You didn't activate it, Ulysses finally said, taking the device. No. Why tell me? Why not do what he asked and protect your family? Melody turned toward the water, feeling the cool breeze on her face. I don't know you well, Ulysses Trent, but what I do know, what I feel when I am with you, isn't compatible with betrayal. She heard him crush the device in his hand. No one has chosen me over their own safety before, he said quietly. It is a mistake. Perhaps, but it's my mistake to make. She faced him again. What happens now? Now, Ulysses said, his voice hardening. I end the Martinez problem permanently. No. Melody reached for his hand, finding it clenched into a fist. Violence creates more violence. There has to be another way. This isn't a world where conflicts end with handshakes, Melody. They threaten someone under my protection. There are rules. Your protection? Despite everything, she smiled slightly. Is that what I am? His free hand touched her cheek with unexpected gentleness. You to becoming something I can to afford to have, but cannot to bear to lose. The intimacy of the moment was shattered by the sound of approaching footsteps. Ulysses tensed, pushing Melody behind him as he drew a weapon she hadn't known he carried. How touching, Neil Martinez's voice called from the darkness. I had a feeling she might choose unwisely. Extra trespassing, Martinez, Ulysses replied coldly. Bad decision. Is it? Neil stepped into the dim light, flanked by two armed men. I think infiltrating your inner circle was quite successful, even if Miss Adams proved reluctant. She is not part of this, Ulysses said. Your quarrel is with me. Neil laughed. Everything and everyone you touch is part of this. That is the price of your position, Trent. No attachments, no weaknesses. He gestured to his men. Take him, the woman too. What happened next unfolded with dizzying speed. Melody heard scuffling, a grunt of pain, then a shot that echoed across the water. Someone gripped her arm roughly, dragging her forward as more shouts erupted. Then Ulysses' voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Silence fell once more. I have something you want more than revenge, Martinez, Ulysses said, his voice tight with controlled fury. And what might that be? Neil replied, sounding amused. Evidence against Judge Harlow. Recordings, account numbers, everything documenting how he has been helping you while taking my money. Neil's sharp intake of breath was audible even to Melody. You're bluffing. I never go into battle without leverage. The judge has been playing both sides for years. I have everything needed to destroy you both. And you would sacrifice that advantage? Neil sounded skeptical. For what? A clean break, Ulysses replied. You take the South Side operations as we discussed last year. I keep the docks and downtown, and Melody Adams and her family remain untouched, permanently. The standoff stretched, tension crackling in the air. Finally, Neil spoke. Show me the evidence first. Release her and my man will bring the files. After another long moment, Melody felt the grip on her arm loosen. She stumbled forward, immediately feeling Ulysses' steadying hand on her elbow. Are you hurt? He asked quietly. No, she whispered, though her heart still raced with fear. What followed was an excruciating hour of negotiation, with Melody sitting silent in Ulysses' car while the men hammered out details of their arrangement. She heard occasional raised voices, once more gunfire, but eventually Ulysses returned. It's done, he said simply as the car pulled away. Or Martinez will leave you and your family alone. At what cost to you? Territory I can afford to lose. Leverage I'd been saving. Nothing irreplaceable. Melody reached for his hand, finding it bloodied. You hurt. It is nothing. It is not nothing to me, she replied firmly, using her scarf to bind his injured hand. None of this is nothing to me, Ulysses. The car fell silent as they drove through the sleeping city. Eventually, Ulysses spoke again, his voice unusually hesitant. "I cannot offer you a normal life, Melody. Not now, maybe not ever. My world is violent, dangerous." "I know that." "Then why stay? Why choose this? Choose me, when you could walk away?" Melody considered her answer carefully. "Perhaps for the same reason you gave up valuable leverage tonight instead of eliminating your enemy. Because sometimes we find something worth changing for." Ulysses' hand turned in hers, their fingers intertwining. "I don't know how to change. I've been this person for too long. Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time." The transformation wasn't immediate or simple. Over the following months, Ulysses began the complex process of legitimizing his business interests, gradually distancing himself from the more violent aspects of his empire. It was a delicate balance, maintaining his power while redefining its foundation. For her part, Melody continued her music career, her performances now frequently attended by a scarred man who sat in the back, yet commanded the attention of everyone who recognized him. Their relationship evolved slowly, built on truth and the unique understanding that comes from seeing someone at their most vulnerable. Melody, a sister, and her children were relocated to a more secure home in a better neighborhood, though they remained unaware of the danger that had briefly shadowed them. Neil Martinez honored the agreement, focusing on consolidating his new territory rather than pursuing vengeance. It was nearly a year after their first meeting when Ulysses took Melody back to the waterfront where they had faced death together. The night was calm, stars visible despite the city lights. "So as you've been thinking about what you said that night," Ulysses said as they walked along the private dock, "about finding something worth changing for." "And?" Melody prompted, her hand comfortable in the crook of his arm. "I've done things I can undo, made choices that will follow me forever." His voice carried the weight of his past. "But every day with you, I find myself wanting to be better than I was." "That is all any of us can do," she replied. "Shall I move forward, try to be better?" Ulysses stopped walking, turning to face her. "I have something for you." He pressed a small object into her palm, a key. "What has this?" "A fresh start. I've purchased property outside the city, land, a house, room for a music studio." Melody traced the outline of the key. "You want to leave everything behind?" "Not everything," he said softly. "Just the parts that make me unworthy of you." "You've never been unworthy, Ulysses. Complicated, dangerous, frustrating, yes, but never unworthy." His laugh was genuine, a sound that had become less rare over their months together. "You forgot stubborn." "That too," she agreed, smiling. "Are you sure about this? Your whole life is here." "My life is with you now," he said simply. "The rest is just details." Melody reached up, her fingers finding his face, tracing the scar that had once defined him in others' eyes, but had never mattered to her. Then let us figure out the details together. Under a sky full of stars neither of them could see, she because of blindness, he because he had never thought to look up, they sealed their future with a kiss. Two broken people who had found in each other not just love but redemption. The man once called us untouchable had finally allowed himself to be touched, not just physically, but in the deeper places where pain and loneliness had resided for so long. And the woman who saw with her heart rather than her eyes had found someone who valued her not for what she lacked, but for the strength her challenges had created. Their path forward wouldn't be without obstacles. Ulysses' past would occasionally resurface, threatening the peace they were building. Melody's career would demand time and travel, testing their connection. But they faced each challenge with the certainty that had begun that night at the Emerald Palace, a recognition of something rare and worth fighting for. In time, Ulysses Trent became known not as the fearsome crime boss who ruled through intimidation, but as the shrewd businessman whose charitable foundation provided music education to underprivileged children, a foundation whose benefit concerts always featured a particularly gifted cellist. Neil Martinez eventually expanded his territory beyond what their agreement had specified. But by then, Ulysses found he cared less about empire building than about creating something meaningful with the woman who had changed his life. The scars remained, his visible on his face, hers hidden beneath the surface. But they had become reminders of resilience rather than symbols of pain. In each other, they had found not just love, but understanding. Not just passion, but peace. For a man once defined by being untouchable, learning to be touched had become his greatest strength. And for a woman who had navigated life without sight, truly being seen had become her greatest joy. Together, they had rewritten their stories, proving that even in darkness, light could be found if you were brave enough to reach for it. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.